Hello, Supercoaches. The teams are in for round 12. Massive teams day. Obviously, Origin players are out. 7 teams are on the bye as well. Plus, we've got a heap of injuries, but some really good news in the teams as well for Supercoaches. Wilson Smith is here. How have you been affected by today's teams?
Well, I've got a few players out through Origin, bye, and injuries, but I think I can still field 15 players, before trades. So after 2 trades, I think I should be able to field a full team, basically. So
yeah, 14 for me, but there's a couple of spuds in there too. So I'm not 100% sure how I'll go this weekend, but a lot of teams do look like they're in pretty good shape. Biggest team takeaway?
For me, it's Fletcher Sharp at fullback for the Knights. He's up against a pretty depleted Panthers side who have been leaking a lot of points this year, so I have a feeling he could go big. I had a quick look at his stats before. He's got 4 scores above 50 playing at fullback before for an average of 61.
Yeah.
So I think he could be in for a decent week, even with the Knights struggling to score points.
Yeah, I've got the VC on him currently, so we'll see what happens there. I'm also looking at the Knights. Dylan Lucas, who played centre last week and picked up a shoulder injury, has not only been cleared of that shoulder injury and named. We'll keep an eye on that for late mail, but it looks like he will play. But he's also back in the back row this week. So big news for Dylan Lucas owners. I know that Rob in particular was talking about selling him earlier today. I think he'll backflip on that.
Yeah, he'll definitely reverse.
The other big one is Naufahu Whyte out. We don't know how long yet. It has been talked about as a month-long MCL injury, but the Roosters say he'll be assessed and we'll find out fully, hopefully tomorrow or the day after that. But big news on Naufahu Whyte.
Yeah, I know a lot of teams would have been depending on him this week, and so his out is a bit of a blow.
Yeah, I'd held him just for this week.
Yeah.
And even though he hadn't been going that well. So not particularly happy about that one. The other things we're going to get through. So Dylan Egan out for the season. Jacob Kiraz probably out for a month with a calf injury. Mawene Hiroti has come from nowhere to be named if you've still hung on to him. Demetric Valmunga's minutes should go up. Greg Marju could be back earlier. Horsburgh, Tedesco, Hamoli, Terrell May all snubbed for Origin, which is good news. I'm going to run out of breath here, but Robert Toya named for the Maroons. You got Beau Fermor named for the Maroons. So much that we're going to get through in this podcast today. We will start with the Doggies v the Dolphins, though. The Bulldogs team is barely recognisable. You've got Blake Taff at centre, which I find very interesting. Obviously, Stephen Crichton, Max King, Kurt Mann are in the Origin squads. Mann won't get released. He's 18th man for Queensland, so he'll stay in there.
Yeah, I'm really keen on the Dolphins in this matchup. The Bulldogs are missing so many players. I'm happy I didn't actually pick up Jacob Kiraz last week. I just couldn't make it work, and now he's out, so I feel pretty happy about that.
Yeah,
Not that he's injured. But
it was pretty much a 50-50 call for me, him and Hosking last week.
Yeah, I ended up going with Hosking,
which I'm pretty happy with because I really did like Kiraz. The only issue was that he was just way more expensive, so I pretty much couldn't afford him. Josh Curran's back for them as well. Viliami Kikau as a bit of a point of difference guy. Had a look at him before. He is the 12th most popular purchase for the top 10% of Supercoaches. So the good Supercoaches are kind of keen on Viliami Kikau, averaging 71, only owned by 9%. He's at a relatively similar price to Hosking. Hosking's the second most purchased player, but Kikau is way down on that list.
Yeah, I've had a bit of a look at his numbers before. I'm not super keen. I can see why people are interested because he's scoring well, but it's just all the games that he's scoring big points, he's got a try or a try assist in. He just doesn't really have the base. So I think in the 2 games that he hasn't had a try or a try assist, I think he had scores of 50 and 39. So I'm just not interested.
Of course, Supercoach Plus is $29.95 for the year. It's the perfect week to get it because a bye week, there's an inbuilt bye planner in Supercoach Plus. You can work out how many players you got on the field this week, next week, all the big bye rounds going forward. So I would suggest you sign up for $29.95 for the year. It is a bargain, or you could get a code subscription, which gets you all the articles, absolutely everything Supercoach for only $59 for the year. So it's $1 a week. On to the Dolphins. So Avarillo's at fullback with Hammer off to Origin. The big thing I'd say is that Tom Gilbert confirmed out for 3 months with a pectoral injury.
Yeah, massive blow. I have him in one of my draft leagues, so
Yeah,
I'll be scrambling to pick up someone on waivers this week. But yeah, I really like the Dolphins in this matchup.
Herbie Farnworth, 4th most popular purchase. Obviously, a lot of people are selling Kiraz and a bunch of other players. Farnworth, I really like him, but I still haven't pulled the trigger on him yet. The main reason being that round 13 bye. So he's not playing next week. You have to factor that in.
Yeah, or I suppose all the teams everyone who picked up Kiraz in the last few weeks and can cover the round 13 bye, like he's a pretty easy pivot, I think. But
they've got similar bye schedule too.
Yeah. So I'm the same. He's someone I've been looking at all year. Almost brought him in a few weeks ago, but just didn't do it. But I really like him as well.
Onto the Eels v the Knights. At the Eels, obviously Moses and Zach Lomax are out through Origin. The guy I want to talk about is Jordan Samarani, who's been playing as an edge-back rower recently. Going pretty well, it must be said too. He's earned dual status for SuperCoach, so all those dual position guys, there's 11 of them, have flushed through in the game. But he's back at centre this week. There's no good cheapie this week, put it that way. I think Samarani should be a little bit more popular than he is.
Yeah, I do like him, but I'm not really in a position where I really need cheapies at the moment, so he's not someone I'm really looking at all. I think I would have preferred if he was still playing on an edge.
Yeah.
The fact that he's moving back to centres, not really a fan.
Onto the Sea Eagles, your Sea Eagles, who are depleted through Origin, but there is some good news. Tom Trbojevic, not named for the Blues. That means he's going to take the field for the Sea Eagles this week. They're without DCE and a couple of other guys, but Tom Trbojevic at $550,000, it's got to be his cheapest price in a very, very long time.
Yeah, he is cheap, and it is... My heart is telling me yes, but my mind is telling me no, just because...
Well, I think Turbo's knees and hamstrings are telling him no too.
Yeah, I mean, just watching him last week, he could have actually had like a really big score, but he bombed 2 tries and just is playing so clearly hurt that I couldn't bring myself to pick him up.
The word is that he had a corked quad, and it's been hit twice recently. So that was the reason he was limping around, according to the Sea Eagles. So it's not as bad as the knee injury he's been carrying or the hamstring injuries he's had before. I can't quite go there. I've got 3 gun fullbacks as it is. I'm going to be bringing in Teddy this week, plus Drinkwater and Pappenhausen. Can I fit Trbojevic in too? I think it's just too big of a risk.
Yeah, Manly do have a pretty decent bye schedule if Turbo doesn't get picked for any of the Origin games. So I think it's worth keeping an eye on, but also if the Blues have like 1 or 2 injuries, you'd think he'd be one of the next men up.
Yeah, I mean, and Laurie did say that he's well in contention to play in this series. There might not even need to be an injury for him to come into that team if Blues, get smashed in game 1 or something like that. So it's a risk, but at only 550 odd K, it is very, very cheap for him. Hamoli, also snubbed for Origin. Very popular guy. He's in around 50,000 Supercoach teams. He's been a little bit off lately, but it is still a boost to get that extra number on. Yeah,
well, he is in Origin camp, but he's only at, I think he's 20th man or something, so he should be released and will play this weekend. I mean, he just has such a high ceiling, though, that I think he would be worth picking up through this Origin period. But again, 1 injury to the forward pack and he'd be one of the next men up.
Yep. I mean, Payne Haas, I know he's been cleared of that, quad injury, but if Haas was to, let's say, re-injure that during the week, then Hamoli could easily end up in that team. Garrick, I think, is a must. I know he's really popular already, but we talked about their bye schedule. He's kicking goals. He's just one of the best guys in that position. I think you have to get him if you don't have him already.
Yeah, I have him and 0 regrets bringing him in. He's a gun.
Yeah. Panthers v the Knights. It's out in Bathurst. The Panthers obviously have a bunch of players on Origin duty, including Cleary, Yo, Liam Martin, Brian To'o, etc. Dylan Edwards. Nathan Cleary as the 9th most popular sell. I find it a little bit strange. If you were going to sell Cleary, you would have done it last week when they had the bye. I think most people are going to have at least decent numbers this week. So I don't see the point of selling Nathan Cleary.
Yeah, I agree. Especially if you have Nico as well. Like you're able to cover him. Like it just really doesn't make sense to me. I agree. If you were going to sell, last week was the week to sell.
Yeah.
This week, I would just be holding him, and that's what I'm doing.
Good news for those who held Tom Jenkins, who's been named in the starting side there, and then Blaze Talangi as a point of difference guy. A low score of 58 this year. So I know it was a bit of a slow start to the season, but when he's been on the field for the Panthers, he's killed it.
Yeah, I was really keen on him at the start of the year. I had him in my initial starting side, but then when he wasn't named, obviously I had to get rid of him. But I've been big on him from the start of the year, and he's not someone I'm really looking to bring in at the moment, but I do really, really like him. It'll be interesting to see how he goes, though, sort of carrying this team with all those Origin stars out.
Yeah, that's the big knock on him. I can't quite go there this week. On to the Knights. Fletcher Sharp, as you mentioned, is at fullback, so he'll be my VC. Ponga off through Origin, so he's the third most popular sell. Unfortunately, you can't get too much out of it because he's dropped so much money. I'm going to go him to Tedesco this week. I've got the cash in the bank, so I'm just going to pull the trigger.
Huge, yeah. I sold Ponga over a month ago. He had lost cash when I sold him, but not as much cash as he has lost now. I think if you can swing him to... There's so many gun fullbacks at the moment. I think if you can swing him to one of those fullbacks that's just firing at the moment and plays through the buys pretty well, I think I can get around that for sure.
Some good news with Bradman Best. Originally, we thought he was out for 8 weeks. It's 3 to 4 weeks for him. Also, good news on Greg Marju. He could be back next week. I sold him last week. A lot of people are selling this week. I probably would be reversing that trade.
Yeah, I don't own him. I did think when the news initially came out that he would be out for a while, I thought he was a sell, but now that we've got some good news, I think if you've still got him, I think I'd be holding that one as well.
Our esteemed colleague, Jet Hatton, who called in sick today, I'm wondering whether it is because his great cheapie from last week, Fletcher Hunt, had an absolute Barry. I'm wondering if those two are linked. Maybe the Stone Street injury as well.
Very possibly linked. I was interested in Fletcher Hunt to see how he went last week. And I wasn't super impressed. He had a bad game. He could still be one to watch, but I think with Greg Marju coming back soon, I think it's just one to keep in the back pocket. Yeah,
I'll be avoiding him for sure. Although he could go okay against the Panthers, who are very depleted this week. Roosters v the Sharkies. So lots of guys in Origin, obviously, plus Naufahu Whyte out. Would you be selling Naufahu Whyte? I mean, we don't know how long he's out for yet. The suggestions were that he'd be out for 4 weeks, so he'd be back, somewhere around 15, 16.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I think most people only really held for his buy coverage. Yeah. The fact that he could potentially be back for the next big buy and should be back for the round 18 big buy round, I think I'm probably still going to hold just for that. But I can see now that he's going to miss this big one that lots of people held him for. I can get around selling him.
Yeah, I think that if Dylan Egan didn't go out for the season, then Naufahu would be a much more popular sell this week.
Definitely.
On to Robert Toya. Comes from nowhere to get named for Origin. Big news, but look, he's not an urgent sell for Supercoach. I was banking on that number this week, but I've got guys to cover him. I don't think... Look, I'm not rushing to sell him, that's for sure, but he's made, almost 350K.
And he's still got a break-even of, I think, negative 19. So when he does come back, there is still more cash to be made. And you never know, Latrell could just destroy him in Origin and maybe he gets dropped. I think Billy will probably just stick with him now that he's, taken the risk. But, there's a chance he will be available for future buy rounds. So I think and there's still cash to be made, like I said, so I think he's a hold.
I think the big decision for this week is whether to go with James Tedesco or not. It's a lot of money. It's around $920,000, so you're not going to get much change for $1 million. But he has been killing it recently. With Dylan Edwards named for Origin, he should play all 3 big buys. Of course, even one injury in the Blues backline, he could easily come back into that team. So it's not without risk, but he's worth a lot. So if he does go back into the Origin team, you can sell him for pretty much whoever you want in Supercoach. I like it. I think I'm willing to stump up the cash. I've been freeing up cash for weeks just to bring him in. So I'm going to do it and put the C on him as well.
Yeah, I bought him a while ago and I've been really happy with him. The fact I was a bit concerned because he had been killing it that he would get picked for Origin, but Laurie didn't go with him. So I think now he just ticks all the boxes, especially like a reliable guy you can captain during all the big bye rounds, I think is incredible.
Nawaqanitawase produced one of the best tries you'll ever see over the weekend. Also really popular for Supercoach. He's pretty expensive now, though. If you got on at the start of the year when he was one of the more popular mid-rangers going around, you'd be laughing. But at his current price, plus he's back to centre this week with Origin players out. So, look, wouldn't say I'm all over it. If he hadn't scored that miracle try over the weekend, would he be as popular as he is this week?
Maybe not. There could be a bit of a recency bias there. Yes. I did start the year with him in my initial team, but ended up not actually going with him to start the year. I like him a lot, but I do think he's a bit just too expensive now.
Onto the Sharkies. The big news there is that Mawene Hiroti is back early from a knee injury. He comes in for Stone Street, who's out long-term, probably 8 weeks with a syndesmosis injury. Addin Fonua-Blake, third most popular purchase. I like it. He scored a try on the weekend. He tends to go big against the big clubs as well, like against the Storm on the weekend. But he's got that bye next week, which is the issue for me. I'll be going with someone like Tapane instead.
Yeah, I actually did bring in Addin Fonua-Blake a few weeks ago. I think in that time he's had a couple of big scores and one or two sort of not so good scores as well. So it's just a little bit inconsistent, but I do like him. It's just you've got to be aware that he does have a low score in him sometimes, and his minutes are just a bit all over the place.
What are your thoughts? Yeah, minutes. He can play 40 minutes quite often, and quite often does. On to Kyle Eero, fifth most popular purchase. I like it. I'm tempted. Again, he got that round 13 bye. His base stats are so good, though. Look, I really do like it, but I think that next week is very underestimated. It's best 17. This weekend is obviously best 13, so it's easier. I actually reckon it's a tougher week next week, particularly if those Origin guys don't back up.
Yeah, I like him as well, but I think that fact that he won't be there is just turns me off him a little bit. But that being said, he is killing it at the moment, and the Sharks unimpacted by Origin, so it could be another big week for him.
Yep. On to the Warriors v Raiders. So no James Fisher-Harris this week. No Mitch Barnett because he's on Origin duty. Fisher-Harris is suspended. So Dimitri Valmunga, who I was originally a bit worried about this week, should, instead of playing his, 10, 15 minutes, I'm hoping you can get 35, 40 minutes and go pretty solid this weekend.
Yeah, a bit of a blessing for everyone who's held him, that he will be playing this bye round and should be in for increased minutes. I don't have him. I moved him on much earlier on in the season, but for everyone who still has him, I think they'll be cheering.
And at the Raiders, obviously Hudson Young's off with the Blues, but Corey Horsburgh not named for the Maroons, so we get a crucial extra number there.
Yeah, I was sort of expecting he was a shoo-in, so I was not counting on having him for my team this week, but the fact that he's there is incredible.
There was some chat that he'd moved to the edge this week with Hudson Young out, but he has been named a prop, and he looks set to stay there. Also, Zach Hosking. I bought him last week at around 500k. It's a little bit more expensive this round. Had a pretty good game. Like, he got 2 try contributions, scored a try as well, but still only scored 70-odd points and didn't play the full 80 minutes. So I'm relatively happy as an owner, having got on last week. Would I be buying him this week? No, I don't think I would. I'd be going for someone else. I'd be looking to go up to someone like Kiraz, to Kyle Eero, someone like that. I'd be going a genuine gun, maybe even Viliami Kikau instead of Hosking. I own him, but I wouldn't be going out of my way to buy him this week.
Yeah, I got him last week as well, and like you said, he did pretty well, and I was relatively happy with him. But there are a few red flags there, so I wouldn't be going out of my way to get him either.
Joe Tapine is only the 8th most popular purchase this week. I thought that he'd be much, much higher than that. If you're looking to replace Dylan Egan, I actually have him as the top option to bring in for Dylan Egan. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I really like him. My only issue is my forward pack. I'm pretty happy with my forward pack at the moment. Especially in front row, I really don't need a front rower there. I've got 3 guns. So I like him, but he's not someone I'm going to be going out of my way to get.
Any love, Wilso, for Xavier Savage? So he's pretty popular this week. You could say he's not a cheapie. He's 380 odd K. But you could say he is the cheapie of the week, basically because there are no other cheapies, and he's the sort of money-making guy that you could bring in after scoring 120 odd over the weekend. I'm not that keen. It's a mid-range price, really. I don't think I'll be going there. I might even prefer someone like Fletcher Hunt instead, who's a lot cheaper.
I do like Savage, and maybe it is recency bias, but I was really impressed with how he played on the weekend, and this is a matchup, a pretty depleted Warriors side. This is a matchup he could go big in again. The problem with him is that his big games are just too far between. He loves a sub 40 point score, so he's just way too inconsistent for me.
Yeah, I think there is a reason why he is so cheap. That's for sure. On to the teams that are on the bye. So the Broncos, we've got Payne Haas as the 4th most sold player. I don't get that. He's been so good for Supercoach this year. I'll be holding for sure. Even with that quad injury, which had him in a little bit of doubt for Origin, that he's now been cleared of.
Yeah, I agree. He's an absolute gun and someone I'll just be sticking with through the whole Origin period.
Cowboys on the bye, of course. Jackson Purdue is a very popular sell. I sold last week when he was on the bye. I didn't like his move to the halves. I don't think that worked for the Cowboys. Certainly didn't work for Purdue, only 27 points. So I can get around selling him this week and cashing in that well over 300k.
Yeah, I sold 2 weeks ago, which I think was the perfect time to sell him. Last week, playing in the halves, I think he could do well in the halves if they stick with him there long term. It'll just take a little while to click, but I think in the meantime, he's a great sell.
Keon Kaloa-Matangi has been killing it since moving to the middle. Unfortunately, didn't quite qualify for front row status in Supercoach, but you can still pick him up in the back row. I thought he might be a sneaky Origin option after his great game on Sunday, but hasn't made the squad for the Blues. I like him. He's averaged 90 since moving to prop.
Yeah,
but doesn't play this week, so wait till next week.
Yeah, he'd be one of those guys that would be on the Blues radar for sure. And just back on what you were saying, he missed out on dual status this time, but if he keeps playing in the middle, he should get it for the next round of position updates. And yeah, he's someone I was interested in a little bit playing on an edge, but now that he's back in the middle, I am really, really interested in him. But like you said, on bye this week, so someone to just keep an eye on.
Only needs one more game at prop to earn dual position status, so you'd think that's a formality.
Yeah.
Cameron Munster, a lot of Storm guys are obviously out through Origin. Munster is not a popular sell, though. It's a rough position at 5'8". I'll be holding Munster.
Yeah, same. 5'8's just been a wasteland this year, so I'll just be sticking with him.
And then Titans, Bo Firma, 8th most sold player. He was one of these guys that was kind of on the fringe of Origin, but has been named for the Maroons on the bench. It's a blow because he had been going really well as that high base centre wing for my team. I still think I'm going to hold, but he's done a good job. He's worth over 700k. So you can go him to a Farnworth or a Kyle Ero, for example, for basically the same price.
Yeah, I think if you need the numbers, I can get around selling him if you're moving him on to another gun. I brought him, like you, in as that sort of reliable base scoring guy that you can put in your centre wing. So I'm a bit disappointed that he got picked for Origin, but I think I'm just going to hold.
And then finally, at the Tigers, on the bye this week, but Terrell May somehow has missed the New South Wales Origin squad. Laurie Daly must not look at stats. Or does he watch games? Like, how can he not pick Terrell May in that squad? Maybe there's something else going on behind the scenes. But still, it's a blow for the Blues, but it is great for Supercoach. wasn't going to play this week anyway, but great heading forward for super coaches.
Yeah, as a Blues fan, I was happy still with some of the players that got picked in the forward pack, like Max King. I think he deserves it, but if you're picking on form, Terrell May would have been a shoo-in, you would have thought. But the fact that he isn't and just overlooked should mean that he won't be in any of the next Origin games as well. So great win for super coaches.
Well, that is it for our Teams podcast round 12. As I said, huge Teams day today. We will catch you tomorrow with Jet Hatton, myself, and Rob Sutherland for the preview podcast. We'll see you then.